My name is George Sipos, and I am welcoming everyone this morning from St. Louis, Missouri. Matt, I think, is with us.
Hello, George.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome, and thank you for joining us as well. Where are you right now, Matt?
So right now I'm in the United States. I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Nice. Mountain time.
Yeah. I'm in Mountain
Mountain time.
Country right here.
So 9 o'clock,
Exactly.
nice and early on Sunday morning.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's 10 o'clock over here in St. Louis. Our colleagues in Romania, I think, are at about 6 o'clock in the evening. So we're excited to talk for the next 45, 50 minutes or so about your and Jeff's movie about the Marshmallow Mystery Tour. I'll be the moderator for this session of conversations with you. I just want to make sure that are we recording and we're good to go, right? Is everybody? I guess so. We should be fine. All right, good. Thank you. So we're good. So once again, good morning. Welcome, Matt, to our conversation today for the Galactic Imagineering Film Festival. We're very happy to have you here. I just want to start this conversation by saying a few words about the movie. But first, I would like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, about your brother, about the movie. Then we're going to go and watch a trailer of the movie, and I'll share a few of my impressions after watching the movie, and then we'll open it for Q&A. If that's all right, we will proceed as such.
Yeah, that sounds good. So
All
yeah, my
right.
name my name is Matthew Beals, and this film was a collaborative effort between me and my brother, actually. So together, we're kind of the Beals brothers that made this film, and it was, I would say, an independent film in every sense of the word independent goes. We pretty much did everything to make this film together, and personally, I've been a working cinematographer for about 15 years. Have a pretty extensive film background and kind of together we wrote the film as brothers, and we both co-directed the film. And then I was the cinematographer, and I was also the editor, and I was also the sound designer and the Foley artist, and all of that as well. And the film took us many years to make. If you add it up over time, how many people were involved, I mean, you get into the hundreds. And yeah, that's pretty much all I would say for now. And then it'd be fun to, I guess, talk about the movie itself at some point, and I'm sure other stuff will flow from that.
Absolutely. That sounds great, Matt. I'll just show the trailer now. I think you put it somewhere here. I'm not very versed with Discord. I'm just going to share my screen. I have it prepared from your website, from the movie website. Actually, it's on Vimeo as well. So I'll just
Yeah,
share my screen from there.
Vimeo link.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's on a Vimeo link, not actually on the website right now.
Okay. Okay. So I have that. I have that. I will share that right away. So just give me a moment so we can show it to everyone. There it is. Let's see here. Yep. So I think everybody can see me now. All right.
More like a kid in a candy store. Wow, you're a bull in a china shop. Oh, you're firing me? We've got one more scene. They're opening a theme park in Hackensack, and they want us to shoot. They're busy to send the video. La la la. We should be bringing back the magic here, not just building a theme park. I agree with you. Yeah. The chocolate bar has her chocolate world. Jelly beans have the Jelly Belly Center. And now, at France, the marshmallow will have a home of its own. Why don't you shoot the Barrowland Visitor Center video? Yeah. Was there anything in there about signing away your innocence? A candy bar with a needle. What about razor blades and candy apples? I've been trying to save the marshmallow. Who controls the means of marshmallow production? Let's get the magic back. What are you after? It's gonna sound crazy, but the magic of the marshmallow.
All right, excellent. Let me stop my streaming here and go back to the main screen. So great trailer as well, Matt. I'll start with a few comments and maybe a couple of questions for you, and then we'll open it up to our colleagues in Romania to join in. So I enjoyed watching the movie. I didn't quite understand when I read your letter and the submission materials what you meant by a docu-fairy tale. You call it a docu-fairy tale. I think that's an interesting new subgenre, if you will, that you and Jeff might be able to launch on the on the scene. It does take you through a carousel of emotions and through roller coasters of emotions, I have to say, because I found myself puzzled a number of times throughout the movie. When I watched it the first time, I was about probably 30% in, and my reaction was like, uh-oh, what am I watching? Is this a thorough endorsement of the sugar lobby of America? I wasn't quite sure where you were going with it. And I said, okay, I have to push through. There must be a larger, wider story here that's being told. And I didn't regret staying with it and watching it. In the end, of course, we do get the revelation of the sugar lobby on one hand, on the other hand, of the oversized candy industry of America. One that is, of course, pushing the buttons on the emotions of the public. Right? We are operating within a mechanism of overblown PR, trying to create magic, right? And the magic itself is actually just a fantasy. We try to invoke history, right? We try to invoke the mallow plant to justify the make of marshmallows. The mallow plant, obviously, for those of us who follow the industry, has not been used in marshmallows for a long time, and we all know what marshmallows are made from. And I enjoyed also the fact that in the end, I kept waiting for it. I have to say, I kept waiting to see, okay, well, what about the sugar production? What about the cacao production? And then when you revealed all that, I have to say, I found myself sort of sighing a sigh of relief, and like, okay, it's good, it's there. I mean, the slavery, the child labor, the warlords in Cote d'Ivoire, and so on and so forth, all that had to be said. And I think you packaged it in a very interesting story. Would I call it a fairy tale? I'm not sure that that's the right word I would use. A dystopian fairy tale, or nightmarish fairy tale, perhaps. I don't know. Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a little bit of a different thing. The fantasy, of course, comes in not as a magical realism jump in between reality and the magical realm, but it comes in as this suspended in time sort of magic that the character is looking for, that really doesn't exist, because it is an imagination of slogans and PR created and marketing created, mascots and so on, who of course had to come to life, and they do come to life at the end of the movie, and they do haunt the characters, and they do chase him up on top of a hill where he, on the top of the big marshmallow a tank where like things are being melted, the bones and the carcasses of animals are being liquefied and so on. So all that wraps up nicely in the end. I enjoyed watching it and rewatching the movie. Now, it was interesting to look back at the first message with the movie where you say, well, there's no brands there that have been endorsed in any way, and still the movie bombards you with brands. I mean, it's just suffocating at a certain point. I don't want to see all that candy brands on the screen anymore. So how did you feel about endorsing without endorsing? I mean, you adopt a critical stance towards it, but I think you do capture well, this fantasy created by brand in America. Can you tell us a little bit about that tension between the corporate branding and the magical um, created for children and for all consumers actually in America?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me just say, George, it's so wonderful hearing your insightful comments on the film. It's really a joy to hear how it landed with you. And I'm especially curious to explore, especially how it landed with you being in Romania and what that's like, because there's so much. I do think that this film is universal in its kind of themes, but I also am aware that I wonder how some of these brands are landing for you. They're so American based. But yeah, as far as your question about the tension between endorsing without endorsing, I mean, that's the thing. This film is a torn film. It comes from a heart place because as American adults now, me and my brother, we are products of growing up around that stuff, and that stuff did mean something to us. It did affect us as kids. We loved McDonald's growing up. We loved Skittles and Starburst. We still love a Hershey bar, you know? So the film is not just like a black and white kind of like realization that it was all for nothing. It was actually a realization that what do you do when you realize that these things did have some sort of a potentially positive effect on you as a child. They did have a lot to do with your development and your perception of of the magic and the joy of your actual childhood, and then to realize later all the horrors behind them. And that really is kind of the whole theme of the movie, is really just how can you hold on to the wonder of childhood, to the magic of the world, while still acknowledging all of the harsh horrors and truths at the same time. Um, and and by the way, that theme is something that isn't even just specific to candy.
Nope.
You could probably winnow in on almost anything in our society and
That's right.
find the darkness behind it. And that's why this movie is very much like an information age movie. It could have almost only been made, I feel, in the age of the internet and in our global kind of consciousness that we're in.
That's absolutely right, and I'm happy you said that as well. And Matt, full disclosure, I haven't been living in Romania for 21 years. I spent my past 21 years in the United States and Japan, so I'm deeply embedded in the corporate world of America. You know, I have American kids, an American wife. So it's a little bit different for me. Although I do come from Romania, I didn't grow up with these brands and all that, but now I have a completely different understanding of what they mean and what the corporatism and the corporate greed in its own way did to all this magical. I mean, we're dealing with this in everyday life in the United States, right? From the illusions and the fantasy of capitalism, of whiteness, of all these things that have come up in the past 2 years, especially maybe in the past 4 years in the United States. We see all that taken apart, and then you have to question, you have to ask yourself, then what's left? Was it all a lie? Or if it wasn't, then what was there that we can still hold on? And it's an important question. It's an important question, especially for the formerly, let's say, privileged groups, the whites. Not all whites were privileged or are privileged, but in the same time, you have to ask these questions about the middle class in and of itself, because the middle class did create a system in which it tried to sort of close off access to certain things for all the other around. So what you're depicting there in the movie is, of course, a certain type of childhood, that happened for certain groups of Americans, right? In that way, um, and and um, and um, and now you have to deal with the disenchantment. So I thought that through Candy, of course, you are telling a larger story. You're telling a bigger story, that we're now uncovering all these layers. We are deconstructing everything. We're trying to figure out what is beneath. Is there anything? Is that? And I found your metaphor of the mallow plant very interesting, because I think that's what is the core of it. You want to hold on to something. You want to hold on to the plant. You say, but it's the mallow plant. Well, it's not. Not even the mallow plant. That kernel of truth that you thought was there, it's not. It's not there anymore, because in the name of mass production, because in the mass of commercialization, in the name of commercialization, in the name of overconsumption and producing a lot and creating consumer need for that, we basically just gave up on everything that used to be. That's why there's so many Betty Crockers, right? I mean, there's not one Betty Crocker, because Betty Crocker had to adjust to the times. And Aunt Jemima is again another example, right? She's not even black, the character says. it's, but but of course, you have to ask that question: why is Aunt Jemima? Why used to be represented as an African American woman? What was at stake there? When everything else was taken away from African Americans, and so on and so forth. So these are all questions that are wrapped in this like nice 90-minute movie, and I think it's they're important questions. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and you put that out there, I think, in your letter to the festival committee, is the parallel, of course, with Super Size Me, Roger Me, and other movies that discuss the damage of sugar. There's a number of documentaries over the past 10, I would say 12 years that discuss all this, that discuss the impact of McDonald's on the health of Americans, discuss the impact of sugar, and describe sugar as a poison, and so on and so forth, that we are addicted to, and we're made to be addicted to, and so on and so forth. So to what extent did you try to bring that discussion up again in the Marshmallow Mystery Tour?
Yeah, you mean like the discussion that's brought up in movies like Super Size Me?
Yeah. This creation of like a need for consumption, so that the corporations can continue to sell their products on one hand. On the other hand, this need for consumption trumping, the health of people's health, people's well-being, because in the end, it doesn't matter. We're just numbers. We're consumers for these big corporations that need to keep counting how many burgers they sold.
Sure. Well, I like to think that our film is actually, it includes exactly what you're saying, and it kind of is more complex than that in a way, because in a film like Super Size Me, Roger Me, there may be a kind of singular view on the takedown of of corporate America in that case. And our film, it's like, for example, we have our ad blaster character in our movie that is directly based on the ad buster movement. And the Adbuster movement has a lot of wonderful things to say about the state of America, or the state of the world, for that matter. And but there's also a certain attitude when you go too far that way, where it's like, let's just burn it all down. And we're not actually thinking we need to just burn it all down. We're actually more nuanced than that. That's why our character is still at the edge of a vat at the end of our movie, kind of still wanting it to be delicious, wanting that magic, still having that kind of idealism that there is something there to hold on to, or there is some hope, at least. So I like to think that our movie isn't a complete nihilistic, destruction of all of that. It's still trying desperately to keep it alive.
And I think that's absolutely right. I agree with you. I think it does do exactly that. So if that was your intent, I think you captured it perfectly. It's interesting that you brought up the ad blasters in the movie. I was surprised a little bit, I have to say, about the franticness and almost crazed attitude of the three, especially the leader of the movement there, because I felt, in a way, that for trying to stay sort of in between, the corporate folk in the end came out as being more reasonable to whatever extent. So all the suits in the boardroom, whatever, and then Sweet Tooth and the intern, and they come across as somehow more understanding. And those guys, the Outlaws, come across as completely insane, like some sort of a cult that's trying to destroy everything. Was that on purpose? Because you mentioned the Outlaws, was that on purpose? I kept wondering. I have to say, as somebody who's done grad school in the United States and all that, I've encountered people like the Outblasters, like with their little Marxist goatees and whatever, and just like pushing for revolution to the end and all that. I could never identify with them, but I was wondering.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear, George. And yeah, who knows? That could be just nuanced of performances that you're catching on. I mean, to be honest, perhaps the ad blasters may be the folks that I identify with the most in the film. So it's funny you feel that, that it comes across that way for you. I think that's kind of depending whose eyes are watching. But I do like to think that the performances are somewhat aligned as far as being everything's a little bit amped up in this movie, in the sense that for reasons of clarity and character, kind of identifying where people stand was kind of an important thing in the movie, to kind of create that dialectic feeling of, just when you feel like you're in this comfortable way of thinking, here comes this person to debunk that, and then we debunk that, and then we debunk that. So it was kind of a warring of personalities in the movie.
Matt, we lost you for a little bit. I'm sorry.
No problem. You're frozen as well. Okay, I'm back now.
Okay. Yeah, you were saying that this comes another character that sort of like blows up that entire sort of comfort zone that you create for yourself throughout the movie, and I think
exactly.
that's
that's why it was nice, George, hearing your perspective on like, you're one of the audience members that knew about child slavery, all the horrors behind candy. You knew how marshmallows were made. So you had this kind of feeling of like, when are they going to say this or not? Whereas as you can imagine, there are other people that watch the film. They don't know any of this stuff. They just love candy. And, the whole movie is essentially bringing them through what our character is almost going through in some way. So I feel like it's different for everybody. And I think you knowing how marshmallows are made does not ruin the movie at all. In a way, it gives you that kind of like engine behind you the whole time of anticipation with the film. So it's interesting to hear that from you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. The one other thing that I looked at was let me use a literary analysis term, the arch of your protagonist, your main character, right? I mean, we find him at the beginning as a cynic. He's a cynic. He can't deal with the infomercials. He's done with it. But then this is his final thing. The Mallowland infomercial or whatever visitor center movie is his final warning, as we see in the trailer. The boss says, "This is it. It's your last shot." And he basically goes in with the desire to find that magic, right? His body helps him, takes him to like the Hershey's chocolate tour or whatever. And that's, of course, reminiscent of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and this entire lore of that we all grew up. I didn't grow up with that. In communist Romania, there was no Hershey chocolate, obviously, but that people grew up with, thinking, well, chocolate is a good thing. I mean, sugar is okay. As a child, you should have sugar as much as you want, and you identify with the brands, and I like this bar better than the other and all that. So he's going back to recover or to recuperate that magic, right? And he does it, and he really wants to believe. He wants to believe. And in the end, we find him at the end of the movie being maybe not the same cynical sort of character, but still on the fence, because he didn't quite recover or recuperate or regain that magical feeling, but he's not yet gone back to cynicism, into full-fledged 100% cynicism. So is that sort of the up and down, the roller coaster that we all go in America through these days? Is that where am I misunderstanding this completely?
No, it's a great question, and that's completely, that is the gray area of the movie and what becomes. I mean, what you're almost describing. It's funny you're thinking about it, because I've been learning a lot about Buddhist philosophy lately, and it's like almost like you're describing this period of enlightenment that he almost reaches, and still when you maybe reach stages like that, you're seeing through the veil of everything, but it doesn't make you necessarily any more. It's not like you come out the other side and a complete innocent by any means. So the movie really ends in a. I mean, I've heard, some people. I feel like the movie ends in a place that we're all at, in a sense, having come through this gauntlet of childhood to adulthood, and it's kind of like a where do we go from here kind of feeling. So yeah, there's no question that you could argue on one hand that, like, yes, he's come back to being a cynic in some ways, because there's no doubt that cynicism is an element of his personality at the beginning, but there also is this newfound idealism and like desire to fight and like and believe and a belief in kind of great goodness that he found on this journey. So it's really I feel like I could ask that the question you just asked me, you could probably ask to lots of different people after watching this film, and they'd probably say different things about where he's at exactly.
Right, because of course his last line is, but it is delicious. It's delicious. What do we do with that? We like it. So what do we do with the guilt that we now know everything about that deliciousness? What's behind that deliciousness? So that's
yeah, exactly. And can we have it all? Can we have it all? Can we have the horrors and the wonder and the magic? Can they all exist together? Is it possible? Is it possible?
I mean, here you are. I think that scene is very much reminiscent in my mind to another group of brothers movie, The Matrix. I'm not going to endorse the other brothers, but in The Matrix, right? I mean, the most powerful scene for me is what's his name? Switch, the character who betrays them, right? I don't remember his name right now, but he's the one who decides to betray them and says, I know this steak is not real. I know that as I put it in my mouth, it is the Matrix that tells my brain that it tastes juicy and it's this and it's that. But I don't want to know. I just want to know that it's delicious. And this is the big question. What do you do? Do you just stick with the deliciousness? Or do you find a way to incorporate in your existence both sides? The Matrix and the reality of the Matrix and the deliciousness.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well said. Well said. Can you do it both? Can you have it all? And
yeah, that's I think that's the main question that the movie asks. Your movie asks, and I think it was done extraordinarily well. I loved it. One last thing that I wanted to mention, also within this sort of political framework of the movie, you might probably know about the book Fantasyland. That came out in 2017. It's an interesting book. Yeah, Fantasyland, I think came out. I have it somewhere pulled here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm playing something here. It came out in 17, and it's Kurt Andersen's book. And it's basically how America went haywire, 500 years of history. And basically what Andersen follows there. Oh, if you get a chance, look it up. Look it up.
Yeah, the title already gets me. Sounds like it's definitely in my world, so in my realm of. So that sounds nice.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting complement to what you're doing with the candy industry. He talks about different areas of life and society, American society, and how they basically just went bonkers into this sort of like la la land of sorts, where like we're imagining the golden times of this and the golden times of that, but it's all made up. It's all a discourse, right? So I think it's an interesting complement, as much as there is this older documentary done by Adam Curtis, right, of the BBC. I don't know if he's still with the BBC, but he used to be with the BBC, and he did The Century of the Self, a documentary in 4 parts about how PR basically created this need for consumption in America by utilizing psychoanalysis. And of course, PR is invented by Bernays, who happens to be Freud's nephew, and so on and so forth. So there's psychoanalysis used at the beginning of the 1920s, basically, and creates Madison Street in New York, and that's where the PR firms start basically imagining. And food is part of that. I don't know if it's the Betty Crocker, maybe it's the Betty Crocker company, and one of the examples is how they created a need for instant cake.
Yep.
And so these are famous examples in PR on how you create need and how you adjust that need based on. They created a focus group interviews. They wanted to hear what the housewives had to say, and so on and so forth. And I think that's aligned again with your movie. That's an older production, I think 2004, maybe. I can't remember right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. I'm aware of the instant cake breakthrough with Betty Crocker though, which is super fascinating and totally relevant. Yeah, to our film for sure.
The difference in sales was between adding or not adding an egg. If you add an
Yes,
egg, then the
exactly.
housewife feels that she's participating.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. That was it. And yeah, no, you could trace so many of the origins of where it all went downhill to those
Absolutely.
stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I will stop with my questions here. We have a few more minutes, actually quite a good number of minutes. I would like to see now our friends and colleagues who are in Romania and how they perceive this implosion or explosion of brands of sweets at them. So if anybody has questions for Matt, please feel free to pipe in. Okay, it's quiet. I think people are. I was wondering. I have to be honest. I was wondering how is that responding? How is the movie responding? Or what would be the reaction of somebody who is not still not exposed to? I mean, I don't know if Pez is a brand in Romania or in Eastern Europe. I don't believe so. I mean, I lived in Japan for 9 years. You don't see Pez in Japan,
Right.
So it has a different impact depending on.
Yeah.
Marshmallows are a new thing in Romania. I growing up, I never heard of marshmallows. I didn't know what they were.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, now they're available in stores that I know. When I go back to visit my parents, I know that they're there. You can't find the right ones to make s'mores, by the way. It's either colored ones or too little ones or whatever. So there are things that you cannot make with them. A number of the things that you talk about, Hershey's chocolate, for instance, was unknown, obviously, in Romania growing up, 40 years ago. So there might be some brands that don't necessarily mean much to viewers there. In the same time, also, I think there is a very having grown up in a dictatorship. And a dictatorship that was purporting to be, anti-capitalist and anti-this, but in fact, it was just lining the pockets of a bunch of the elites at the top. We're very. I think Romanians are very wary of endorsing something that's anti-capitalist, that's anti-corporate. Not that your movie is, but if it seems to be like that, they might be like, well, if it's not capitalist, what is it? Should it be communist? Because we lived through that.
Yeah.
We lived through that, and it wasn't good.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really special to hear that. That's why I was, we were just so thrilled to be a part of your festival and to think about it being perceived in Romania. I mean, it's just completely, it is surely not America, that's for sure. But I'm curious about, like what were some of the more universal, what felt universal and actually connected and landed, and what felt kind of like a wonderful window into the madness of America.
Right. We'll see. We're still open to see if anybody wants to ask questions of Matt. I'm creating room for people to think, to gather their thoughts on the movie itself. I personally can continue the conversation for the next couple of hours. That's not a problem for me. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Was there somebody trying to intervene? No. All right. So let me then just ask one other thing from my side. there was a depiction of the characters, right, that I think was interesting in a way. The protagonist seemed to be sort of an alter ego of you or Jeff, or like the two of you together, sort of going through your experiences and now coming into this America that's questioning everything and it's uncomfortable in many ways. But then you go to Mellowland, and Sweet Tooth and the intern, are heavy set people. There's a certain image of that, and I was wondering if that was on purpose. Is it something that you're trying to say there? Is it just so happened that the people who work through candy factories and they're associated with the candy industry are heavy set? Is this a wink, wink, nudge, nudge at obesity in America, overconsumption of food and sweetness in America, and so on?
No, that's funny that you bring that up. I hadn't thought of it that way before, so I would say probably no. But of course, yeah, there's no. I mean, they turned out to be the greatest actors for those roles. That's really what happened, and they were just both fantastic in that. But yeah, there's no question that the intern and Sweet Tooth are kind of like buddy. Like Sweet Tooth is very much the intern's mentor. It's all that the intern aspires to be. Essentially, it is like a Sweet Tooth one day. Of course, that changes in the course of the movie potentially, but because he has his fall, kind of like the death of Socrates scene, we like to call it, in the dentist office later.
Right. I thought Sweet Tooth was a very compelling character, a very empathetic character. I appreciated the fact that he was not described just as another corporate suit. Basically, he was a person who wanted to reach across the aisle, who didn't think that the infomercial portraying the murders and the pillaging and the crimes committed in the name of sweets. I mean, the Hitler the Hitler story is fascinating. The one with the cake, I love that one. It's like,
that was a gold piece of footage we found. We got that from an archive in Russia. We found that clip.
Really
incredible. Yeah,
that's fascinating. I mean, eating Europe piece by piece as a cake. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
It's incredible. When we saw that, I mean, there were so many moments in the making of this film, George, when we were just, because the film was written, but we also did so much research, and we let the research help us write the movie. So, when you find a clip like that of Hitler and them cutting up Europe into a cake, that's gonna find its way into the film. So there were so many jaw-dropping moments in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. here in America when we were just watching old footage and just discovering Operation Hand Clasp by the Wrigley Company in Vietnam, or in the Korean War.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just wild,
Unbelievable. I mean, all these things. And I think that, yes, it had to be there. I'm glad I remember now. It had to be there. The American soldier with the chocolate. The American soldier with the chocolate, I think, is also a piece that is so relevant, because this is the image of the American soldier. The American soldier gives away Hershey bars. Why is
Bring them sweets and flowers. Yeah,
exactly. So you pillage the place, you pillage the country, you just conquer everyone. You go through, you drop atomic bombs on Japan, and the first images that the PR machine of the war complex creates is American soldiers in Tokyo giving away Hershey bars. Iconic image, and you're like, well, you just killed 500,000 people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But that's the iconic image, right? That is the iconic image of giving away sweets. Here's the sweetness that could be from now on, if you only obey us, if you only follow us. So sweets play a major role, right? It's an important thing there. The sweetness that should be.
Yeah. Right? It's literal and figurative sweetness you're talking about there.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, Matt, it's again a wonderful meditation, and you know what? You called it a parody and you called it a comedy. I wanted to say this. When you watch it once, the way I watched it, the first time I watched it, you don't get the comic. You don't get the humor. You have to watch it a second time, the third time, and then you laugh out loud at the whole situation, at the whole ridiculousness, at the precariousness of the situation. Because it's all precarious. Like, well, but it is delicious. What in the world do we do with that? And that's hilarious and sad. I mean, you want to cry and you want to laugh at the same time. Because it's the reality of all of us. I mean, this is what, over coffee on weekends, this is what I discussed with my wife. You know, she grew up like that. She grew up in like this phantasmagorical America of like everything was fine, everything was awesome.
Right. I'm curious, George, you're saying, yeah. I'm curious what you were saying about your first view of it, because it's so wonderful to hear that you got to see it more than once, because there's obviously so much jam-packed into there. But I'm curious about your experience. You didn't laugh really the first way through. You were just, what was that experience? Because it's interesting, because we've found that people can watch the movie differently. I mean, it's kind of like, you could watch this movie as just kind of like a wacky madcap comedy adventure movie, and have a good old time, or you could really start to winnow down into the deeper meanings like you seem to do. So it's interesting to hear your first viewing versus your second.
Oh, it's for me, unfortunately, I'm broken because I study literature, so I have a doctorate in Japanese literature. I'm broken. I'm done for. I mean, everything I look for is going to be the political meanings. So when I look at this, I mean, the first thing that you say marshmallow to me, I'm like, okay, sugar, carcasses, okay, I want to see that.
Yeah.
Right. So then the first, like I told you, by the 30%, 35% into the movie, I'm like, okay, these guys are endorsing the sugar lobby. I'm stopping right here. I can't watch this anymore. And I said, no. Yeah, well, let's wait. It was confusing. I mean, at the moment when they're showing footage of those girls, dancing at the fair or whatever with the chocolate, I'm like, okay, what is this? This is propaganda. I'm not going to watch this anymore.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't laugh. I couldn't find it funny in the first instance.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really incredible to hear. And that is very much the, I mean, that's the trajectory of the film if you stick with it, because it's very much, I mean, if you think about the film itself is kind of a metaphor for that. It's like, you could argue that the film structurally is the evolution of America of itself. But, that it starts out as this idealist thing. And, if the movie followed all the typical cliches that movie would be, the movie would end with him at Malaland screening the visitor center video, and everyone would be cheering him on their shoulders, and he gets the magic back at the end, right? And he did it. But of course, that's not where the movie. Yeah, that's Hollywood. Exactly.
And you didn't go for Hollywood, right? Obviously, that's
right.
That's great. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, and I said it's that very reason that some people are scared of the movie too.
I'll tell you, there will be different type of audiences, and I think that even for Romania, I think that I would have loved to hear some of the opinions because I am sort of disconnected from that reality. I don't know where that reality is today, and I know that there is a lot of reaction against the potential criticism of corporations, the potential criticism of globalism. Romania is going down the same path of we're renewing our tendencies of nationalism, of extremism, and so on. Not overall as a country, but there are pockets here and there that are popping up now again, and it kind of reminds you of like our fascist past in the 40s and so on and so forth. So we all have to be mindful of that and how we look at things. I mean, things like political correctness are hugely debated in Romania. A lot of people are against it. They don't understand the meaning for it. They don't understand the need for it. Why is that? Why is political correctness something that we need to at least consider? Because they don't understand the history, especially in America, where the concept comes from, the history and the need for that because of the systemic racism, systemic oppression, extreme poverty, and so on and so forth. Because America is Hollywood. I mean, when you understand America as Hollywood, you think, but it's all good. It's like in the Lego movie. Everything is awesome. What's the problem? So it's complicated. It's a complicated sort of dynamic there, Matt. Anyway, so I wanted to wrap this up by saying, I think Fantasyland is a great sort of complement to the movie in its own way. I'd love to continue this chat with you. offline. Maybe we can email and such. I think that the way you guys are doing documentaries is a very interesting way of looking at the world and at America. You know, I ponder often as an immigrant to this country who came as a grad student, right, and sort of studied and understood America from a different perspective. I look constantly at the parallels between what I knew about America as a child, you know, where America was the place of like opportunity and the place where if you work hard, you get it, and you're just gonna. And that's not the America I experienced, right? I mean, the America I experienced is a bit more complex and complicated and muddy and dirty than that. You know, the land of opportunity, yeah, maybe for some, but not for everybody, obviously, and so on and so forth. So these are all questions that I think it's good to ask from different perspectives, from inside the American paradigm as well as from the outside of it, and question that tension, right? So these are the thoughts I had about the Marshmallow Mystery Tour. It's been a joy to watch it a couple of times actually. You know, yesterday I had to see it again. Before, in preparation for this meeting, I had to see it again, and then I could laugh, like I said. Um, and I hope that the movie actually gets more of the attention that it deserves. I see it's gotten quite a bit of attention. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, George. It's been truly a pleasure to talk with you and an honor to be at the festival. You know, just thank you for everything. Thank you for your inquisitive watching and thoughts about the film.
Thank you, Matt. Much appreciated. Please convey my congratulations and admiration to Jeff as well. And I'll maybe shoot an email one of these days to connect by email.
Please stay in touch for sure. I'd love to chat more with you. No question. More to talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Enjoy your morning in beautiful Denver, and you know, take a stroll down the main area there where people always hang out. I forget. I've been there a couple of years ago, and now I forget.
Oh, very nice. I'm in Boulder, so I'm about a half hour from Denver. I'm in Boulder.
You're in Boulder. I'm sorry. I apologize. You said that. Boulder is also nice.
Yeah, exactly. No worries.
All right, man. Have a good day. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you. Goodbye.